Dave had been there, of course. He always was. He'd seen the residual glow, the unnatural stillness that had fallen over Chris. "You okay?" Dave had asked, his brow furrowed with concern. Chris had just nodded, unable to articulate the impossible truth. He was no longer just Chris David, the grieving detective. He was something more, something borrowed, something infused with the essence of the woman he loved. Crystal, in her dying moments, had imprinted herself onto his very soul, a desperate act of love that had given him a power he couldn't comprehend. This duality was a constant torment. One moment he was Chris, a man drowning in sorrow, a detective driven by a desperate need for vengeance. The next he was a conduit, a vessel for Crystal's ethereal essence, her courage, her clarity, her uncanny ability to perceive the truth hidden beneath layers of deception. When the syndicate's machinations became particularly brazen, when the danger escalated, Crystal's spirit would surge within him. Her touch, when he deliberately channeled it, could inflict a spiritual burn, a searing pain that left no physical mark, but gnawed at the very soul. Her emotions, her intuitions, flooded his mind, a torrent of prescient knowledge that guided his every move. And his aim with his service weapon had become unnervingly perfect, as if guided by an unseen hand. But this power, this gift, was also a curse. It was a constant reminder of his loss, a spectral companion that amplified his grief. The episodes were unpredictable, often triggered by stress or intense emotion. Dave had become his anchor, a steady hand to guide him back from the precipice when Crystal's spirit became too overwhelming. He'd learned to anticipate the signs, the prickling sensation on his skin, the sudden chill, the faint scent of her perfume. A scent that was both a comfort and a stab of pain. Dave would often pull him aside, his voice low and urgent. "Chris, easy. Breathe. She's with you, but you gotta be in control. We need you, man, not just her." Mayor Adam, with his carefully coiffed hair and his practiced smile, was another thorn in his side. The mayor was more concerned with Castle Dam's reputation than its reality. The surge in crime, the whispers of organized syndicates operating openly from the harbor, were an embarrassment he desperately wanted to sweep under the rug. Chris had seen the mayor's dismissive nods, the way he deflected questions about increased police presence or resources, the subtle pressure to downplay any incidents that might tarnish the town's idyllic image. "We're a tourist destination, detective," he'd said, his voice smooth as polished marble. "We can't afford to give people the impression that Castle Dam is anything but safe and welcoming." Chris knew it was a lie, a carefully constructed facade that was about to crumble under the weight of the syndicate's machinations. And then there was Chief Schaffer. A man who had once been a respected officer, now seemed content to let the rot fester. Chris suspected it was more than just a reluctance to rock the boat. Crystal's murder had clearly affected him, and Chris suspected Schaffer harbored a guilt, a sense of failure, that made him hesitant to pursue certain avenues of investigation, perhaps out of fear of reopening old wounds or worse, of inadvertently revealing his own complicity or ignorance. He'd seen the way Schaffer's gaze would drift, his answers become vague when Chris pressed him on leads related to Crystal's death. The chief seemed to be walking a tightrope, trying to maintain order without truly confronting the darkness that was consuming the town. The syndicate, however, was merely a layer of the nightmare Chris was living. There was another presence, a more ancient, more terrifying entity that moved in the periphery of his awareness. He'd felt it before, a cold, predatory intelligence that seemed to watch him from the edges of his perception. Dave had dismissed it as his grief playing tricks on him, the stress manifesting in paranoia. But Chris knew better. He'd felt its chilling gaze, its unnerving stillness, a stark contrast to the frenetic energy of the syndicate. Crystal had warned him, her spectral voice a whisper in his mind. "There are things older than the sea, Chris. Things that hunger."